Hello again and welcome to the program. I am Suren. Another fact of importance is to be aware and being alert to our being, but also one. We may be from all sorts of places, but we are one, because we are of the same source. And everything is connected and made of the same stuff, which we call energy. What appears as solid objects oscillate also and vibrate at different frequencies. As individuals, we are all separate in appearance, yet we are not separated from each other. We are part of the universal hologram and are simply linked to each other. No matter what race we may belong to. We might be from lizards or other species in space, who knows? There are things that your kind needs to be aware of, we are told. Not many people in this world who have supposedly died, as for example, and then later found that they were still alive, perhaps in a different world, and then came back into consciousness, as you also know of, remembering everything they have experienced to tell their story. We are, of course, talking about the near-death experiences, which I have been involved and made it into a study. In a different time we'll talk. It is an established fact. Life and living is only beginning to be unraveled these days. However, living consciousness today brings us to the spotlight on many things in dire need for change and keeping the planet Earth within sustainable ecosystem. At this very moment, Earth people are ruining their world planet. They cut down rainforests, which depletes the world of oxygen, and which they need to keep alive. Man breathes in oxygen, as you know, and breathes out carbon dioxide, which is of course required to keep your vegetation and your forests alive. As one can see, in very simple terms, that everything is truly linked together. And the children need to be made aware of these things today. There is a movement in that regard in schools. But there are certain plants in your world which you can use to create paper, for instance, and strong clothing. And also you are capable of using your digital media Therefore, there is no need to destroy your forests and your vegetation. On the other hand, honesty means to express one's personal feelings freely, telling one's truth kindly and gently, with complete honesty within ourselves. We cannot be dishonest with one another. Being truthful builds trustworthiness, reliability, dependability, and responsibility. When we trust the self, and then we know truthfully, and therefore we feel real. Knowing what is so, what is deserved matters. So then, experiencing what is so, then acting just so, is how being real works. For the betterment of all, as we all know, harm and violence does not work. Why should we then keep acting in this style? Being really honest is the best way to be. Yet somehow we are lying to ourselves. Are we being dishonest with ourselves as we still engage in violence? In every item and in all we observe, everyone enjoying such things as cinema, computer games, TV, music, concerts, football, comics, literature, and at the same time conducting something like road rage, and our children copying everything from us. Can you see the insanity in that? Children are copying adults. That is the tragedy. Not being completely honest, humans are holding back their advancement for better things. That is the truth. Let us then ask ourselves, what are we showing to our children? Obviously, patterns of behavior, and that is what they are being left with. Just tell me, what is honest? What is real and truly the way you want to bring up your children? Accepting such mediocre behaviors as a way of life. What is your responsibility? Meaning, being in charge and accountable for your own lives and your own selves. You are indeed responsible for yourselves as a part of globalization. As individual selves, you are all accountable for the betterment and survival of all things. Responsibility means exactly being in charge and accountable for your own lives and yourselves. Let me repeat myself. As individuals, we all are accountable for the betterment and survival of everything. Being intricately linked together, what do you do to one another? You do it to yourselves. And here is a reminder once again. What do you give to another? You give it to yourselves. When it comes to it, we are all responsible for our own environment. Our rivers, our oceans, our atmosphere, our planet, indeed, everything. As everything is given to you and to us all to live in, but not to destroy. Sharing in the inheritance, or that is what you are meant to be, your world and everything in it, and utterly honored in reality, belongs to all people upon the same planet. It really does not belong to just single individuals, or the companies, or corporations, or leaders, governments, or indeed the nations. You may not consider your indigenous people, and not even understanding them. But I will ask you, or anybody involved, about who the smartest you may want to think of. You or them? You obviously know the answer to that. The rivers and the entire world and everything on it and in it are truly sacred to them. It is therefore time to consider how a perfect human being could be possible. I can tell you that a perfect human being is the one who shares everything. He, the perfected human being, is one who loves everything. A perfect human being is a human being who truly cares, who is kind, who helps, is forgiving, non-judgmental, and compassionate, and loves everything and everyone unconditionally. When doing your best, you are fulfilling your unconditional love. You might think that there exists no such thing. I think you better search deep into your hearts. This is what every human being must strive. For instance, peace, tranquility, harmony, thoughtfulness, and caring, consideration, and prosperity of your planet. All this leads to a loving, peaceful, and blissful world, achieving through the teachings and concepts of understanding, honesty, and responsibility, and other important values being taught for generation after generation after generation through the global education. You don't even need to wait until you are perfected to create peace in your world. Just refrain from harming each other. The evolution of humanity is to be moving away from harm and violence and leading into unconditional love. Let me remind you of the most harmful source, which turns out to be something of negligence, neglect and lack of responsibility, which is indeed extremely harmful. It is destructive, violent, and which starts within the human thoughts and human attitudes, leading to violence, destruction, and in all other human actions. In fact, that is the number one enemy of humankind. Remember, harm can demolish and break peace. Then nothing else does matter. Then how can we at all come to harm in the human nature? Question mark. And realizing that has been a wasted time, effort, money, and loss of millions of lives through the wars. Do we really need to harm others to exist in a beautiful world? A question every one of us must answer. To overcome such an anomaly, we must create peace, and there is no other way. For a long time, the world has, in a sense, endeavored to overcome harms. So they developed laws. And the laws exist to overcome harm to humans' mental, physical, and spiritual being. Wars, greed, exploitation, vandalism, graffiti, many other crimes, and the like. And they are being dealt with, supposedly. All you know exists, harm. Everywhere within your realm. Even those who know which and how to stop harm to ecology, rivers, oceans, atmosphere, and the planet itself. But laws, although plenty to tackle harm, come too late. many of the laws have been very ineffective because they come as they came very late in your lives. Remember the saying? Train up a child in the way they should go and grow. And when they are mature, they will not depart from it. The preventative side can only come from a global education of the young ones. Whereas, without going global in this regard, will not work. Take my word for it. Would a parent training, probably backed up by the rare occasional system, work? Question mark. In all other directions, it may look positive. Education of today on earth fails to fulfill its full functions. The only thing that works in the world is unconditional love for everyone and everything. And you first need to love yourself unconditionally. Then you will be able to love all others and all things in your world. Love of life. It's not, for love is only being the fulfilling of the law. If all humans have loved all things and one another, they would need no laws. In fact, love is the only answer for fulfilling the laws. What is the direct opposite of love? It is evil. Would want to review? Question mark? Right. Harm, obviously, and in fact, as we can see, is the direct opposite of love, and which is really hard to consider. If you teach your children not to harm, you are teaching your children to love. The evil part of the human nature in relation to the human environment is so obvious. This can be considered as the current evolution of the individual's nature, thus the evolution of humans. This civilization needs to ensure the valuation of planet Earth, where hurt, violence, harm no longer should exist. Prevention through education, through global education, is an extremely good solution, if not the only one. The attitudes, beliefs, and values, the framework ensures all the new skills taught will not be used to harm anyone or anything, be it sports, business, color, race, or creed. Love is not only the fulfillment of the law, but also the understanding of the law. In other words, by nature, humans need not be absolutely perfect to create a world of peace. Just refrain from harming one another. Indeed, new technologies must and will never again be used destructively, only constructively and beneficially for the highest good for all human beings. Are you knowledgeable about those several wonderful books to read from? See if you can put your hands on them. And please, get them and read them. Your libraries are full of them. Your social media is very rich with them. A curriculum based on values focusing on children's attention, on honesty, responsibility, understanding, which needs to be assured, and that will be for the highest good for human evolvement. Keep that in mind. Although what we are discussing here may sound somewhat religious in nature, but let me remind you that it is not. It is all about teaching the children. It's all about the importance of global education. It is about teaching the teachers. Remembering also that the word God is only a characterization, because when we speak of God, we are indeed talking about the energy, the power, and the source of everything. It is a power which must never be abused or controlled. It is only to share. We have three major parts to ourselves: our body mass, thoughts in our minds, and thinking, soul, and the spirit. Through these, we create all the future and the present. Thoughts create matter, or even destroy them. And you can change matter and or manipulate. Thought was the beginning of all creation. Just see in world where humanity comes from and returns to it after death. And the physical world was first a thought, and thought itself is the supreme energy. This awesome energy is just another word for the life force. For some, it is, as we mentioned before, a god, residing within everything and everyone. And many people don't seem to understand the concept. Everything in the universe is energy. In other words, thought. When you look through a microscope at a solid object, such as a piece of metal or even your hand, you discover that the solid matter is not as solid after all. And everything is a thought. Perhaps even imagination or inspiration, fantasy if you like, manipulating this energy into what we think about. Everything is energy, and we are all one. Take it or leave it. God is made of thought, which are all the thoughts in our minds. We create our own lives and also all our future, good or bad. Attitudes and beliefs dominating our minds. They also create our own and the world's future. Whereas harm and violence create tragedy. Because of the free will, the energy or God cannot and would not interfere. All the ills humanity have created is not from a God, because God is good. God is love. Think of happiness, fun, and joy, and it will be yours. Think of everything of the negative kind, and they too will be yours. This greater power and the source of consciousness, the science through quantum physics, is proving today by showing how it operates itself, although it cannot physically experience it. It's all magnificent. It is a very intelligent divine plan, obviously. Even when planning to fragment itself into different pieces, just imagining, each piece becomes a part of itself, and it would be the micro within a macro situation. Whereas some of the parts are greater than you. Nothing exists in the world which is not of this source. We are all connected to each other as one. It is therefore logical to consider that we create things by thoughts alone. By using this power, we create things and circumstances in the world, and we experience this creation. In fact, as a collective consciousness, we have created by participating. The process we go through to individuality and create means that this source itself is now physically experiencing all this creation through us. It is what this source or God set out to do in the beginning, experiencing the self through physicality and through us. We are all a part of this energy field, which dwells within all of us. That is the plan. What does this all mean? Okay, it means that we automatically manifest thoughts into existence for the creation of a world, and the universe is now becoming or happening through us, not through the source or God, but through us. Because of the gift of free will, we are all. If we keep our minds off war, of terrorism, and of being harmed, the power of thoughts can help protect our physical bodies from harm. Believe it or not. You choose. What we are seeing here is that God is with us and within us, and there is no separation. You may think that you cannot get your mind around it, or it's very difficult to consider. However, remember that we are the physical manifestation of that source. So, God is experiencing life in the physical form. Through free will and no interference whatsoever, all thoughts, beliefs, words, actions, or even deeds are all our responsibility. All of us create our tomorrows in today. In fact, a thought is always a choice. We may go sitting down and hoping that God will interfere and create a better life and better world for us. This is completely futile. We have the freedom to do anything, and that we can easily do it. We need to create our own lives and take ownership for the way we want it. Most of us want a peaceful, beautiful, joyful, and happy life in the world, to be as in a safer place to live in, for example. And it can be. It will be granted. When one asks, why do we have such hard times, such miseries, and sorrow in the human world, and evil behaviors still existing. You know all about world of today, don't you? The answer to that is simply, we do not have to. But the meaning of such things we create ourselves through the power of the human mind. The harmful intent creates destructive thoughts and actions and beliefs. Humans have created their own evil, even have their own devil in the old house. It was not the source of God. Therefore, the question is, can humans remove that misery? A question to ponder upon. Think about it. Thank you for sharing this portion of the episode we have been engaging in. I'm sure you will have plenty of questions in your minds. We will meet again by the next episode. Until then, keep happy, keep smiling, and be happy, happy, happy. Thank you.